The Bengals have a new quarterback, and he's going to start on Sunday in Green Bay. Is that the right move? All things Flacco fallout, Joe Flacco time here in Cincinnati. Let's break it down right now on Enter the Jungle. Hi again, everyone, and welcome into Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He's Andrew Fox Miller. Make sure you check us out every single Tuesday at 8 on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk Weekly on FanDuel Sports Network and, of course, wherever you get your podcast. We're proudly brought to you by FanDuel and Lakespur Marketing and Garage Beer. And boy, oh boy, I will tell you this, Andrew. If Joe Flacco comes here and brings the Bengals back and gets the Bengals into playoff contention, there will be plenty of garage beers consumed in the Queen City this fall because Joe Flacco is a Cincinnati Bengal. Let's just get the reaction, your reaction as this happened on Tuesday afternoon.
First of all, we had a sense that something was going on. I think everyone did at some point as the afternoon dragged on. Mike White released from practice squad. You knew something was brewing. You didn't know when it was going to happen, but in typical Bengals fashion, it's, for me personally, at the most inconvenient time, and I'm sure for you as well, James. It always seems to work out that way. It wasn't even on my radar. It couldn't have been on yours. How many videos, how many times did you kind of break down who they could go after? Why would you ever think a division rival would part with any piece that would make your team better if you were the Bengals? It didn't even cross my mind.
That's why I didn't really mention him, because if you look at that situation, it makes sense. They have rookies. They're going to stink this year, the Browns. And so, like, getting that veteran would make sense. But you're right. Like, with the history, given the fact that, Mike Brown isn't going to make many in-season trades, period. This is just their third in-season trade, and we'll get to that more coming up. But third in-season trade since 1973. I mean, they just don't do it. And so for them to not only make a trade, address a weakness, and do it with a division rival, that part is surprising. But I do think that when you look at it beyond that, the fact that Joe Flacco, his only win so far this year came against the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. You look at the decision where he's going to start, and we'll get to that coming up, but he's going to start on Sunday in Green Bay. And it starts to line up a bit more. And so let's get to the overall decision here. Yeah. Because all it is it's a fifth-round pick swap. So the Bengals send a fifth-round pick in the 2026 draft to the Cleveland Browns. They get back a sixth-round pick in Joe Flacco. So it's not much. They're probably moving down about 40 spots or so in the draft. Maybe more, maybe less. Hopefully it's less because the Browns are worse and the Bengals are better, and it balances out. But it is the Lions pick, actually. So it would be the Lions being a little bit worse. Regardless, though, they didn't give up much to get Joe Flacco. How much of an upgrade do you think Joe Flacco is compared to Jake Browning?
I think in the areas that are important, he's an upgrade. Important in that he can dissect the defense. He can get the ball downfield. I think if you're a fantasy football owner of Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, you've got to at least feel better. Never mind the overall team take on this. I think there's going to be more production, at least out the gate, no matter how you feel about this. I think pretty much any Bengals fan would agree the Bengals had to do something. I saw a lot of takes out there from the media and the fan base just assuming they would do nothing. I was one of them. I was doubting that they would actually do something. Say what you want about the quarterback that they added in Joe Flacco, but you knew this couldn't continue with the way things were. And this was one of those times where the front office seemed to agree with the noise building around them. And we don't know that Flacco, by the way, was their first choice. He could have been near the bottom of their list. We don't know. But we know that calls were made, and it took a division rival to agree to the trade. Overall, I'm happy with that, all things considered.
Yeah, let's start there. The fact that the Bengals are taking a swing. I got laughed at, and not just by viewers and listeners, laughed at when I brought up trading for a quarterback a few weeks ago. Like, I've been on this train for a while now because I wanted an option if Jake Browning stunk, because there was always a possibility that Jake Browning was going to stink. And guess what? It smells from Paycor Stadium when you look at how he's played over his 3 starts. They got outscored 113-37 28 of those points, which is all 4 touchdowns that they scored, came in garbage time. 1 garbage time touchdown against the Minnesota Vikings. They don't score a touchdown against the Broncos. And then 21 points against the Detroit Lions. Wow. So really, if you just take those away, which is unfair, but I'm going to be unfair for a second, it's 113-9. What are we talking about? They had to make a move. They had to do something because an offense that has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Mike Gesicki and Chase Brown and Noah Fant, and I could go on and on, they're not that bad. I promise you they're not. And there are going to be a lot of people that talk about the offensive line and all those things. I think they've done enough the past couple of weeks to give the Bengals a chance. Jake Browning hasn't given them a chance. And so to go and get a guy, it was a no-brainer. A no-brainer. And I do think that Joe Flacco is a better fit for the Bengals than Jake Browning. And guess what? I'm saying that knowing Joe Flacco is going to throw interceptions. That's Jake Browning's big problem. He's thrown 8 picks in 3 starts in basically 3.5 games. If you count the Jacksonville game where he was really good in that game, but he threw some interceptions. Joe Flacco is a guy who's going to throw interceptions, but he's going to throw touchdowns. And if you can get 2 really long touchdowns to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but you also have an interception in the first half, well, you take that because you're going to be in the game. You can survive. You can operate. And so when I think of how Joe Flacco makes the Bengals better, Andrew, it is very similar to my vision for Russell Wilson. A moonball, deep passing offense with high variance where there's going to be a bunch of 3 and outs, and then there's going to be back-to-back deep touchdowns. There's going to be some interceptions, and then there's going to be some checkdowns. But if you're a moonball team that throws it deep and pushes the ball down the field, and Joe Flacco can throw it 70 yards, he can launch that thing for Jamar and T. But also, he should be able to just give this offense a higher ceiling. And even with the interceptions, could and should be able to put up points. So he's an upgrade there. He's got more physical gifts. He's got a stronger arm. No, he can't move. But it's not like you were banking on Jake Browning to run for 50 yards a game anyway. So to me, this makes sense. His arm talent is worth it. They are better. How much better? Time will tell.
You talk about move. I don't know so much that the concern is he going to, do they have a quarterback that can run 50 yards? It's more of, do they have a quarterback that can run away if that offensive line isn't doing what it needs to do with that particular quarterback? This being Joe Flacco, there are concerns there, and I understand that. And for anyone sort of doubting this, and I am not going to die on this hill when it comes to Joe Flacco. I just want to float this out there. So Joe Flacco might not be the last starting caliber quarterback that they add to this roster this season. I don't expect it, but think about it for a moment. If Flacco manages to get a few wins and you see a path to be competitive with him, and now you don't want to be left with Jake Browning during a difficult November stretch facing the Steelers, Ravens, and Bills as your backup, right? I'm just saying that Flacco could buy them time to do what they failed to do with Jake Browning at quarterback, which is finding a plan B sooner rather than later. I don't think they'll do it, James. I don't think they'll do it, but the door is open where they still could make another move. I'm just saying, this isn't, people are acting as this is it. This is the solution, ride or die with Joe Flacco. And that may be the case, but they just did something we totally didn't expect. It stands to reason it still could happen. This isn't all of a sudden the door's shut and they're not going to make another move in a matter of weeks.
No doubt. And I think this shows that the Bengals knew that they couldn't look Joe Burrow in the face, who I know for a fact is rehabbing like crazy, plans to come back this season. I've tried to make it so clear, crystal clear, that Joe is telling people he's coming back this year. So I'm just going to make sure I say it right now so everyone on FanDuel Sports, everyone here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk knows it. Joe Burrow plans on playing this season. And so when Joe's working his tail off, you can't turn to him and say, oh, well, we're trotting Jake Browning out there again when he throws it right to Anzalone coming out of the half, 14-3, and 3 different lines could have picked it off. You just can't do that. You can't look at Jamar Chase in the face and T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson and even this offensive line. Can't look at them in the face and say, hey, we're doing everything we can to win. And so you go get a guy in Joe Flacco who's proven. He was the AP Comeback Player of the Year in 2023. He was 4-1 as a starter for the Browns, completed 65% of his passes last year with the Colts, and has never had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all the weapons that this Bengals offense has. I like the roll of the dice. It's low risk, pretty high reward, because the high reward is being relevant enough for Joe Burrow to come back this season. I buy it. Do we buy Joe Flacco starting on Sunday in Green Bay, just 5 days after the Bengals have traded for him? We will discuss that coming up next. Welcome back to End of the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. I'm James Rapien, and today's segment, on Joe Flacco starting on Sunday against the Green Bay Packers, is brought to you by Lakespur Marketing. Looking to scale your marketing? Let Lakespur Marketing be your trusted marketing agency. They have a broad range of experience, regardless of industry, experience like Joe Flacco. Make sure you check them out. The proof is in their partners. Visit lakespurmarketing.com today. And Andrew, boy, oh boy, if you would have told me that not only did the Bengals trade for a quarterback, but he's going to start 5 days after they did trade for a quarterback, well, Joe Flacco would be one of the rare ones where I think it makes sense. He started against the Packers a few weeks ago, led the Browns to a 13-10 victory over Green Bay a couple of weeks ago. Didn't have a touchdown pass, but did have 21 of 36 completed 21 of 36 of his passes, and kept the Browns afloat against a Packers defense that is certainly tough to deal with. Is this the right move, starting Joe Flacco 5 days after trading him and on the road against a Green Bay Packers squad that has Super Bowl aspirations?
Yeah, I mean, of the options that were out there at quarterback, taking a step back, I know we talked about, Kirk Cousins, his contract, and Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, all that. I can't help but wonder, like, all the different scenarios of what quarterback would be able to start immediately in this case. At least with Flacco, not only has he played recently, you just said it, he played this very team. He's been around long enough, he knows how it works. I don't know how it all meshes together in terms of his ability to get caught up with what Zach Taylor's envisioning. We talk about scheme and so on and so forth, but just how this offense operates. I assumed that whoever was going to get added to this team was going to dress for the game, but they weren't necessarily going to start. And odds are, based off what we've seen from Jake Browning, they were going to have to enter the game midway or sometime during the actual game. I have to think that Joe could do it if he is asked to. And I have to imagine he's going to get asked to, right? I mean, what scenario do you give more leash to Jake Browning? I just can't envision. I mean, 3 games of what we saw.
By the way, I didn't have the full stats in front of me earlier. 21 of 36 for a $142. That was Joe Flacco's stat line in week 3, a 13-10 win over the Packers. As a member of the Cleveland Browns, the Browns' only win so far this year. Look, he knows that defense. He certainly knows the Bengals offense. And I think it shows you where the Bengals are with Jake Browning. They know they have to win. They think they can win. They think their offense should be able to function better. And I said it a couple of weeks ago that if you bring in a quarterback now, you can have them ready for Thursday night. The Russell Wilson, last week I said that. But a guy like Joe Flacco, who's faced the Packers a couple of weeks ago, who's played the Steelers 1,000 times in his career and is familiar with the AFC North, maybe he can hit the ground running when you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all of these weapons. And that's the element here where I think it's, one, a huge upgrade, and two, if you're Flacco, you got to be ecstatic because you're coming here. You're going, still an offensive-minded head coach, a guy in Zach Taylor who knows he's got to win games, and an offense that has so many weapons that fit your style. Joe Flacco doesn't want to move around. He doesn't want to get hit a ton. And so you know what he's going to do? He's going to throw that thing around. He's going to throw the ball. He's going to push the ball downfield. He's not going to be taking a sack in the end zone because he's holding onto the ball too long. Now, that could result in some interceptions. You are getting those interceptions anyway. If that results in 3 first-half touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and we just see less of Ryan Rico, that's still better than what they had with Jake Browning. I get the risk, but putting Browning out there, would you feel any better about going to Lambeau if Jake Browning's under center versus Joe Flacco on 5 days of being in stripes? I wouldn't. And so Joe Flacco, he's going to have that Wednesday practice, that Thursday practice, Friday. You travel on Saturday. He's going to have the plane. He's going to have all of Tuesday night. It's a lot, but he's a 40-year-old quarterback that's been in the league since 2008. This is the same guy that got an endorsement from Bengals legend Willie Anderson after the trade, because Willie played in Baltimore during Flacco's rookie year and blocked for Joe Flacco. And so it goes way back. He's been in the league. He's seen it all. He can start on 5 days with 4 days of preparation, really 4.5. It doesn't surprise me when I look at all of the context clues that the Bengals would go this route. And I do think it's the right move. Even if Joe Flacco struggles in Green Bay, I would start him on Sunday.
Yeah, and looking beyond the win-loss probability by adding Flacco in immediately, I think of long-term, or I should say, giving Flacco the opportunity, his best opportunity for success, looking ahead through this season. And I have to question, is it doing Flacco any sort of disservice to just throw him out there so quickly? But then I remember that the alternative is they don't put him out there, and likely, again, we'll have to during the game if things continue the way they have been with Jake Browning. And then you're turning right back around and you're playing a Thursday night game. Is it really that different? You got to get ready for 2 games in a very short period of time. Yeah. And I guess my message to Bengals fans would be, expectations wise, I would almost look at this as a bit of a preseason for Flacco. I think he could exceed expectations and surprise us, but this is his way of getting in those reps with this offense on this team for Thursday night. And I think if you approach it that way, and we can walk away and find some positives and some things to look forward to, regardless of the outcome of this game, I feel a lot better than I could have possibly imagined after these last 3 weeks.
All right, real quick, curveball. What national media member, what national personality is going to make fun of the Bengals and say the reason they traded for Joe Flacco is because he could drive down 71 from Cleveland and not fly from New York or fly from Carolina or fly from wherever with the quarterbacks that we named as potential trade targets? Is someone going to make that joke about the Bengals ownership?
You ask me to name names?
I'm just
Florio.
You can. It can be rhetorical. Yeah, it might be Florio. You're right. I can see that for
Schefter
sure.
Maybe in a backhanded way, not as direct, but yeah.
The Bengals like the idea of a 3.5-hour drive from Berea to downtown Cincinnati. Berea is where the Browns fin. Anyways, I thought about that earlier. I'm like, oh my God, someone's going to make that joke. Obviously, that's not why. I can tell you Zach Taylor, the leadership part of this was huge as well for Joe Flacco. They believe he can be a leader in this locker room and lead them, well, to brighter Joe days, which is Joe Burrow getting back on the field. We'll see if it will happen. We're going to take a look at the odds ahead of Sunday's game against the Green Bay Packers coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He's Andrew Fox Miller, and this segment is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel's got an offer you don't want to miss this NFL season, and we're going to get to the Bengals odds against the Packers coming up in just a second. But new customers with FanDuel can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5. If it wins, you unlock $300 in bonus bets. You can build parlays, player props, ride the live lines. Maybe you want to do a little Joe Flacco, Jamar Chase parlay. I can't believe I'm saying those words, Andrew, and yet they are true. Visit FanDuel.com/BigPlay to download the FanDuel app and get started today. That's FanDuel.com/BigPlay. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, are 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Andrew, the Bengals 14.5-point underdogs going into Lambeau Field. The line hasn't moved yet as we do the show since the Joe Flacco trade. Too high, too low, just right.
Oh, depends on what angle you want to take this. Where do you want to put your money? I would say that I expect that line to change. I think that 14.5 is going to go down. I don't know how significantly. I still think it's obviously going to be a 2-score game that they're going to be throwing out there for people to bet on. But yeah, I mean, keep in mind, 14.5 after that game against the Lions, adding a signal caller and Joe Flacco, and it's a much different team, regardless of what kind of team it ends up looking. It's still very different. That is a 14.5 Jake Browning line.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. It's just a lot of points. You know, the Bengals could be down 21, score a garbage time touchdown. And so I think that half is where you really get me. 13.5, I would totally get it. I think it's a tad high, not too high. And the Bengals, they have a lot to prove. They do. Because that 37-24 score last week against the Lions, it really wasn't that close. And man, oh man, it's just double-digit underdogs for a second straight week. We're going to have you covered. And up next, well, the Bengals, they're underdogs again this week. They've also done something with the Joe Flacco trade that they've only done 3 times since 1973. We'll get to that next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. I'm James Rapien. And the Bengals with the Joe Flacco trade, Andrew, have done something that they've only done not once, not twice, but just 3 times since 1973. 3 times in 52 seasons. And that's make an in-season player acquisition via trade. They traded Carlos Dunlap to the Seahawks for BJ Finney, if you remember that, in a 7th-round pick in 2020. Last year, they traded a 7th-round pick to the Bears for Khalil Herbert. And on Tuesday, they trade a 5th-round pick to the Browns for Joe Flacco and a 6th-round pick. In-season trades, baby. You know how much I love trades. The Bengals, they're coming around to my side. Let's go.
Hey, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Look at them starting to take some shots. So more of that, please. Hey, imagine if it was twice in a season, going back to what I said earlier. Not saying it would happen, but imagine. We could do an entire segment just on, oh my God, I can't even imagine.
If Joe Flacco can win a little bit, you know how many trade takes I'm going to have. You know I'm going to have all the trade takes right here on the YouTube channel, Cincinnati Bengals Talk, right here every single week on FanDuel Sports Network. Joe Flacco is a Bengal. Does that mean that they're going to win some games? We'll see. We're going to have you covered every single step of the way. And until next time, shout out to our sponsors, FanDuel, Lakespur Marketing, and of course, Garage Beer. Until next time, for Andrew Fox-Miller, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Enter the Jungle.